Members, it's just after 6. We've had just a couple of technical hitches, but I think we've got there. So I've left it a few minutes, but I think we will make a start to just after 6 o'clock. So good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Local Plan Subcommittee. It is a little while since we last met. It was back in July. This meeting is being broadcast via the Council's YouTube channel. I'd like to welcome anyone who's watching, and the meeting is also being audio recorded. My name is Councillor Mrs Gabrielle Spray, and I will be chairing the meeting. Before I start, just a couple of housekeeping matters. Firstly, we're not expecting the fire alarm to sound this evening, so if it does, it will be the real thing, and please leave the Council chamber via the fire exit opposite and assemble in the car park. And secondly, just a reminder to please turn off any mobile phones or switch them to silent. Right, thank you. I'll now move on to the business of the meeting. I'll start with apologies for absence. I haven't received any apologies. I know we've got 3 members not here at the moment. Whether they are on their way, I know it is absolutely horrible weather out there, very unpleasant driving conditions, so it may be that people will turn up a little late, but otherwise everybody else is here. Item 2, declarations of interest. Do members have any disclosable pecuniary interests, other pecuniary interests or non-pecuniary interests relating to items on the agenda that they wish to declare this evening? And please state the item and the nature of your interest. Councillor Buckland.
Excuse me, Madam Chairman. Item 5, A12 to A120 widening scheme. I am a member of Essex County Council, which is referred to in the report.
Thank you. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Same as Councillor Butland, please. A non-pecuniary interest in item 5 as a member of Essex County Council, but also particularly as the Deputy Cabinet Member for Economic Renewal, Infrastructure and Planning at Essex County Council.
Thank you. Councillor Thorogood.
Yeah, I'm an Essex County Council, Braintree Eastern Division. A12 goes through my division. Yeah, non-pecuniary.
Okay, fine. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. A member of Rivenall Parish Council, which has been involved in many meetings with the County Council and National Highways regarding the A12 widening, and also the Parish Council will be taking part in the DCO examination. NPI, stay and vote.
Fine, thank you. And I think just for clarity, I'll declare an NPI as the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure. I have attended many of the briefings on the A12 widening, as I know have other councillors, but I will just declare that for clarity. Right. Item 3, minutes of the previous meeting. I say that was back in July, 5th of July. Minutes have been circulated. It was all about approving the draft local plan section 2. Does anyone have any comments? If not, could I have a mover and seconder, please? Councillor,
happy to move, Madam Chairman.
Councillor Cunningham, thank you. Seconder somewhere? Thank you. Councillor Mrs Parker. And just everybody happy with the minutes? Just a show of hands. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Just sign those. Right. Okay. Item 4, public question time. We have no one registered to speak this evening, so we can go straight on to the agenda item 5, which is the A12 to A120 widening scheme, statement of common ground. This is on pages 5 to 74 of your agenda, and can I invite Gary Sung, Senior Planning Policy Officer, to present the report, please. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. So the A12 Chelmsford to A120 widening scheme is a £1 billion to £1.2 billion pound road project from National Highways. It's scheduled to be completed by 2027 after a 4-year construction period. It's going to be a development consent order to be approved by the Secretary of State, and and it will take into account recommendations from the Planning Inspectorate after an examination. The Council will be a discharging authority. This means that we have responsibility to ensure that construction and operation of this project is sufficiently controlled and mitigated. The Statement of Common Ground, the draft Statement of Common Ground, included in the report, sets out the issues of agreement and disagreement between National Highways and the Council at this moment. It's a live document, so these issues will be updated during the course of the examination of the DCO. Members are invited to comment on the issues within the SOCG. There is a table included in the report which neatly highlights the issues in accordance to a red, amber, green status, green being issues which are agreed with National Highways, amber being issues which will require further information or further work, and red being issues where there is currently a disagreement. If you look at the table, the only red issue at the moment is detrunking. There are quite a number of amber issues where we are looking for further information, such as for noise, we're looking at air quality. In these cases, we're looking for technical assessments, verifications from our consultants. There will be a designated fund to provide an opportunity to bid for additional money for local schemes. The national value of designated funds is it's a national pot, and it's worth £1 billion, which is available for local initiatives such as planting and cycling schemes to support the project. Councils at parish councils will be able to bid for this money. So if I go through the slides on the screen, I can guide us through the project, sort of junction by junction almost. The first two slides, I guess. There we go. Yeah. So that covers Hatfield Peveril. It's a split junction currently, 20A and 20B. Is going to be removed and replaced with a all directions junction 21 between Hatfield Peveril and Whittam. There will be a moderate change to landscape, but it will have an adverse impact. Access to junction 21 will via the Wellington Bridge in blue here. That will be to the north of the Four Arm roundabout. Previously, there were proposals to use the southern arm and create an arm here, but that had unacceptable impacts on the properties here. There will be use of a noise-reducing surface on the southbound carriageway. That is one of the issues that are subject to the SOCG in amber, because we're not sure that the noise-reducing surface will perform as desired. We will be taking technical advice on that. There'll be retaining walls used instead of earthworks to accommodate the widening, so that will be a landscape change close to this sort of carriageway. There's no material changes proposed for the Duke of Wellington roundabout. In addition to the above, ECC and the Council will seek for Junction 21 to be modified to accommodate a future B1019 modern road link. That will be in this sort of vicinity here, where the road could join to B1019 further down this way, going in this direction. There will be retention and extension of the 3-metre cycleway and footpath adjacent to the northbound carriageway. That's in blue. You can see that it bypasses the roundabout. And there's a demolition of a couple of properties. During the construction phase, a main construction compound to the north of Junction 21 for the whole duration of the construction phase is planned. This will be subject to a separate planning application. The construction compound will also be the base for the workforce and the creation of new jobs. The removal and replacement of Bury Lane Station Road and Wellington Bridges will require mitigation measures for moderate severance to residents of Hatfield Pebble. That will include creation of a car park in this vicinity and the use of a shuttle bus. Moving on to Whittam South, there's a new open space being created here, and there's new walking, cycling, and horse riding routes being created across the A12 in this orange. That links up to Gershwin Boulevard. There will be the installation of 800 metres of retaining walls instead of earth bunds, and the demolition of outbuildings on Malden Road in this vicinity, and the installation of Cadent gas mains, it's kind of here to the east of the nature reserve. During construction phase, there will be a traffic management and logistics compound on off Gershwin Boulevard. I believe it will be in this area, and there'll be temporary diversion of footpaths for quite a significant period of time, and the temporary removal of a noise barrier at Market Lane to allow for construction of retaining walls. Market Lane is here, I believe. So the footpath to Whitby Nature Reserve will be closed for a period of 17 months. In Whittam North, there will be a new All Directions Junction 22 constructed above the new A12 alignment through Coleman's Quarry. So there'll be a new walking, cycling and horse riding bridge between Colchester Road and Little Braxted Lane. That's to replicate current links, really. That's in blue there. And there'll be improvements to the existing cycle route along the north of the current A12, which is this blue line here. And there'll be a main construction compound being in use, I should say, for part of the construction phase. It is here that there is a significant, the old A12 runs along here, and that will be detrunked, which is a matter for the SOCG to resolve. But at the moment, we are not close to an agreement on that. Too far. Moving on to Rivenhall End, the detrunked A12 is a matter for the report in Appendix 5. There you'll see a letter from ECC to National Highways where the matter is discussed, and Braintree Council is largely going to be in agreement with ECC on those matters as far as we can. There's a new roundabout proposed to link the existing A12 to Braxted Road and Henry Dixon Road. Subsequently, Oak Road North here will be closed, and Oak Road South will be converted to a simple priority junction. There is a new road bridge over the new A12 here, including a 4-metre wide cycleway and footpath road link. The retention extension of a 3-metre cycleway and footpath adjacent to northbound carriageway to link with Braxted Road. This is the blue line. And then there'll be new earth bunds planted to the south of the drive to mitigate noise and visual impact. There's a new road parallel to the widened A12 to link Rivenhall End with Kelvedon. That's this one. And there'll be a new Sniveller's Lane to link the fire and rescue HQ at Kelvedon Park to the rest of the road network. It goes towards Kelvedon, going down to the south here. There will be a loss of two properties, Hare Lodges and Badgers. In Kelvedon, accommodation has been provided for a potential A120 link, sort of in this vicinity. The junction will be removed, so the only way to get to Kelvedon will be via junction 24 at Fearing. Ashman's Bridge will be widened, while Ashman's Farm Bridge will be demolished and repositioned slightly. I believe that's these two bridges. And Highfields Bridge and Yule Bridge will be demolished and replaced. So that's Yule Farm Bridge there. A all-new directions, junction 24 will be constructed within a cutting, so it's below the level of the A12, to the south of Kelvedon, and access to Inworth Road will be via a new roundabout off Inworth Road. At Fearing, again, the old A12 runs here, and the detrunking of that, its character and how it will look, has not been agreed. New planted earthburn south of Preston Hall Cottages will be put in place to mitigate noise and visual impact. New road and walking, cycling, horse riding bridge will be constructed to the south of the existing link, but during construction there will be a temporary closure of this footpath. There will be new open space provided. In general, the project will result in a loss of about 400 hectares of arable land. There will be daytime two-lane running to be maintained during the weekdays between 6 and 9, but nightly diversions and weekend diversions will be via the A131 and the A120 with impact on residents along that route. National Highways have estimated there are 266 noise-sensitive receptors along the diversion route. But it has been considered in their assessment as being unlikely to have a significant effect on population health. Widening of online sections would require traffic management such as speed restrictions, narrow lanes and control systems. Local roads will be used for construction access and temporary traffic lights may be required. Measures for controlling mud will be installed. Potential diversion of bus routes which utilise the A12 and local routes may be needed. The economic benefit for procurement at local and small and medium enterprises is considered a positive benefit. There are also positive benefits to local population for training, education and job opportunities, and further details will be released in a construction traffic management plan. So, members, there are three. Have you got the report, please, Alan?
So I haven't done any hard copies.
Sorry, members. It's towards the top, I think.
Oh, 12.
There are three recommendations. To note that the issues in green within the SOCG are resolved as agreed with National Highways. To note that the issues in amber and red are currently unresolved. And to note that the Cabinet Member for Planning and Infrastructure, in consultation with the Head of Planning and Economic Growth, will agree the final statement of common ground. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barry, for that. Just before I open it up for discussion, I would just say that the last briefing that I attended on this, which was for portfolio holders from the relevant local authorities, members of Essex County Council officers, and also National Highways representatives. At that meeting, Councillor Leslie Ragland, who is my counterpart on County Council, spoke with very clearly to the National Highways representatives about her dissatisfaction with the detrunking proposals and as she saw it, the lack of consultation with members and with officers over what was going to happen to it. She was pretty forthright, I have to say, and I absolutely support her position on that. And I do note Gary's comment during his presentation that we are not close to agreement on this matter. So anyway, I'll leave it there, but I thought I would just flag up that it was most certainly an issue even, a couple of months ago. Right, members, would anybody... Yes, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've got a little bit to say. I'm sorry to detain members, but, this is a very, very important issue for many communities. And, what I'm going to say doesn't negate the fact that it has a big impact on lots of areas, but it does have specific impacts in the Rivenhall area, which I represent. So I was a bit alarmed when the officer said that BDC agrees with what the County Council is saying about the D-trunk section at Rivenhall End. We only found out literally weeks ago what Essex County Council was proposing at Rivenhall End. And when we did tell residents what we found out, the local county member accused us of lying, which wasn't helpful. What you see in front of you, the letter on pages 71 and 72, is only a sort of high-level view of what the County Council thinks should happen to the D-trunk section. So that's what I want to concentrate on, because that's what... And you did say there's a big gap, and it's the RAG-rated red area, so I accept all that. I was at a meeting where county officers showed us their ideas for what should happen to the D-trunk section. And these included digging up 2 lanes of the A12, the northbound side, we think, leaving it as a rubble field, covering it with soil and allowing it to rewild. Now, whilst I'm all in favour of rewilding, that did seem a bit of an extreme measure. But of course, what that would then do is it would completely alter those drawings which the officer just showed of the roundabouts and the bridges and all the rest of it that are provided for Rivenhall End, most of which, by the way, the local community supports, because it does get the lorries out of Rivenhall End and it does provide better, they're not ideal, but better arrangements to the links with Braxton. So we were very alarmed when we saw this. Also in their options was the possibility of not stopping up Oak Road, which people will die in a ditch to make sure that is stopped up, and other proposals for a vague sort of lozenge area of allotments and play areas sandwiched between the existing housing in Rivenhall End and the retained carriageway. I mean, to be honest, it was like, I'm going to be harsh, a primary school children were asked to come up with a scenario. I mean, it was extraordinary. And when we made it public what we'd seen, we were told by the county member we were lying. Well, we weren't lying, and I got hold of the slides and published them to show what the county council were proposing. So I'm a bit alarmed when the officer says that BDC agree with county, because I hope you don't agree that's what's going to happen. But also, the BDC hasn't been consulting with us at all. We've had no approach from BDC to the parish council to say, what do you think about what county are doing, that I'm aware of. So when county and National Highways say they're a long way apart, they're a long way apart, and we're sort of caught in the middle, because we sort of like a lot of what National Highways proposed, given the other impacts. But we're alarmed because what county will do is they will have control of the road. They will be the highway authority for the D-trunk road. Do they come along in 2028 and say, well, we're going to do what we like? So there's a huge amount of uncertainty as far as we're concerned about what's going to happen. Looking at some positives in the detail, and I was really pleased to see this today, the compounds will need planning permission from BDC. Now that's really good because we were very worried about that huge compound next to Whitelands on the northern side of the current A12. I think if BDC have control of that, it's far more likely we might have good conditions to control, because there will be significant impacts from noise, from vehicles, from lights. I've mentioned to National Highways about lights, and they said, oh, yes, it'll all be fine. Well, if you look at their existing compound now at Fearing North, white LEDs shining out into the countryside, it's not fine. But there's lots of potential impacts there. So can we locally be part of this process? There's another meeting, by the way. I think it's December. The thing came through today, didn't it? It's been moved from late November into early December to talk to Leslie Wagland and all the relevant county, district and parish members about this D-trunk section. My concern is we're going into the DCO process and there's still massive uncertainty, but also that county sprung this on us at a very late stage. So my first question to officers were, had you seen what I've just described previously, or was that something that's only just emerged very recently from the undergrowth, so to speak? I've got a couple of other questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, Gary, if you could just go. I just, yes, was just going to question the Councillor Abbott's point that there has been no approach from BDC to local councillors. I think there have been consultations, but anyway, would you answer that, please, if you could?
Well, I specifically am agreeing with the tone of the letter as attached to Appendix 5. That letter does not make any reference to any specific plans for digging up or rewilding or plug-and-play areas in. It is new to me that these proposals are anything but ideas. Nothing certain has been agreed with ECC, but we will be working closely with them, and they have been engaging with us regularly on officer level and on a member level. It is disappointing that to a parish council level they haven't been communicating as much, but I do believe there is a sort of a decision-making sort of hierarchy to that will feed down to local areas eventually. I think if going forward local parish councils are finding that they're being ignored, parish councils are able to approach the district council, and we can take on board some of the concerns, particularly as this impacts on Rivenhall End quite closely.
Well, thank you for that. To be clear, National Highways have consulted us extensively and regularly. We have no argument at all with National Highways. County have only started talking to us recently. Although you say these are ideas, the worry is we're in the DCO process. Are they going to go to the examination and say to the inspector, this is what we think should happen? So, and I think with respect, you're fundamentally risking the point. If this is what the county do, then those drawings won't look like that. The plans won't look, because they physically can't. The roundabout near the Fox won't look like that. There won't be 4 lanes of the D-trunk road, there'll be 2. The bridge would be a different width. And there's lots of local detail, which I won't go into tonight, about the cycleway, proposed controlled crossing, and lots of other things. So, huge uncertainty, but if I can just flag that, and my complaint is the District Council hasn't been talking to us. Moving on to a few other things.
Sorry, Councillor, I was just just going to interrupt you there. I appreciate that consultation it's always important. I think we need to be clear, and I'm sure you understand this, that this is an NSIP, this is a DCO process, so it is different to the normal planning process. Having said that, there have been consultations, there have been opportunities with the parish, certainly with the parish councils, but there were opportunities there. My understanding is that district councillors to attend those presentations and have a say. So I don't think it's quite correct to say that BDC has cut out the district councillors altogether. I don't actually agree with that. I think that there have been opportunities. right?
That's not what I said. What I said was that there hasn't been any dialogue between BDC and the parishes, although it looks like there has with Witham Town Council. But I'm not aware of any dialogue with Rivenhall, which is just as much affected. And I think also, to be clear, these issues have only arisen very recently. So, and if BDC weren't aware of these details, I'll forward you what they showed us, then that's a perfectly plausible explanation. And what we're talking about on the agenda today is the statement of common ground, and that's what we all want. If all a parish, district and county level, we can all go into the DTO process with broad agreement on what we want, fantastic. But currently, as it says, there is a big gap between what county is saying and what National Highways is saying, but there's also a very big concern that county are pushing an agenda which, at a detailed level, which is radically different to what National Highways are. So I'm just flagging that and asking for assistance, really, because obviously we're only a parish council and I'm sitting here as district councillor, but if we go deep into this DTO process with this uncertainty, I can only see trouble. And of course it'll be an inspector at the end of the day who makes a recommendation.
Yeah.
So just coming on to a few other points, the agenda asked for any additional items which might want to go into that list. I would say, I don't know whether it's relevant, but there's sort of the broad environmental impacts, which I don't think there is good agreement on. So it does mention somewhere else, but not specifically in that RAG list. One of the things that's going to happen is massive loss of trees. There's a big group of trees going to go at Rivenhall End. And how do we secure not just biodiversity net gain along the whole route, but in specific areas? Street lighting, we have had a conversation with them on, but I'm not confident National Highways will deliver a good scheme unless they're pushed to. And then I just wanted to flag, as already been mentioned, during the construction period, I think there are going to be major concerns, which go on for 3 or 4 years, about access using local roads. It doesn't take much locally in the Witham, Rivenhall, Kelvedon area, as Councillor Thorogood said, almost late tonight, for something to happen to have huge knock-on effects. And I don't know the answer to that, but the management of the construction and diversions as well. I don't know if anyone else was caught in it, but there was a recent diversion at Ipswich, just south of Ipswich, and literally you were sent off in the middle of the night to the countryside with no signs. I mean, it was absolutely appalling. If that happens during the A12 construction, instead of them taking the preferred route along the A131 and the A120, we're going to get a big trouble. And then just 2 final points. We're still not clear locally what the long-term use is going to be of the land being taken for bunding. They're going to dig up some land just to the north of the A12 to the east of Rivenhall End, and they're going to leave it as, they say, lakes or shallow, perhaps ephemeral lakes. They need that to apparently, they're telling us it's not for gravels, it's for sands, and it's for clays and soils, but we're not entirely sure what the long-term use of that's going to be, whether it's going to stand on national highways. And then on page 48 it states, it refers to planned and forecast background growth of housing and other development at North Witham, Cressing and Silver End. Is that some sort of implication that there's further growth that we don't know of, or does that refer to what we do know of that's either got permission or is in the local plan? Thank you.
Thank you. The points that you've made are quite good. I will take a look at each and every one of them and get in some technical expertise to double check that the issues are being looked at. I think some of them will require some input from ECC, or perhaps it'll be ECC's domain to manage, particularly the traffic management and use of diversion signage needs to be improved to ensure that diverted traffic doesn't stray in the wrong direction. The borrow pits, as you say, to the east of Rivenhall End do look like they will be lakes. It possibly, I'll have a look into that in more detail and just check the depth and its usage, particularly as surface water management. And I think the point on the population growth, that was the correct mistake that National Highways had made in the first place, because they had labelled Braintree as a medium growth rather than a high growth district, whereas our neighbours at Chelmsford and Colchester were labelled as high, yet we had a similar level of growth, if not higher, than our neighbours.
Thank you, Gary. Right.
Just one thing, I'm not. Thank you for that. Just not quite sure whether we're coming. I'm wondering if perhaps a suggestion we could expand the landscaping, the second one on the red table, to include this broader issue of landscaping and mitigation. Would that be possible? Which I mentioned.
It's a number of subjects, so it's not. I mean, this is a summary as well of the actual Statement of Common Ground, so it does go in more detail in the Statement of Common Ground. Mitigation is going to be a very important part of that, particularly as the mitigation that they do provide needs to have a management plan in place to ensure that it can survive hotter summers and ensure that if some of the mitigation planting does, for example, wither and die, it gets replaced as soon as possible. So there are issues with mitigation that we have picked up and we will be discussing with them in detail.
Thank you, Gary. Just looking at the agenda at the list of meetings and forums that have taken place. It's a long list, starting in obviously 2017 and coming through to date, of consultations, briefings and forums that have taken place. So I do think there has been plenty of opportunity both for the parishes and for relevant district councillors to to come and actually it goes back to 2016 to engage on this. So I don't.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, I totally agree with you. It has been very comprehensive, and perhaps I wasn't clear enough. My concern is there hasn't been enough and adequate dialogue between BDC, Parish Council and County about the D-trunk section and these new proposals which have emerged in the last few months. That's my specific gripe. Broader than that, yes, and we've been at a lot of them, absolutely.
Okay, all right. Councillor Thorogood, I think you're next.
Thank you. Gary, I wonder if you could put on the Kelvedon South map, if that's possible. Because one of my concerns is the new road, the sort of link road that's going to go all the way to Whittam, I believe. It's going to go past the Rivenall, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's going to be a link road from the Kelvedon South junction is going to close. You can't get direct access onto the A12. But there's going to be a link road. It's going to go through Rivenall where those roundabouts are, then on to Whittam North where the super junction is. So I think some of the people in Kelvedon are going to have a choice of either, if they head into Chelmsford direction, they're going to think, do I go up to Inworth, which is psychologically the wrong direction, or are they going to go down to the south? So that road is going to become a rat run, I think, and it's got to, either something's got to be done about that to stop that, or it's got to be able to take that sort of traffic. I don't think you showed the Inworth junction because it's technically in Colchester Borough, isn't it? Because that's replacing Fearing Junction 24. Sorry? Yeah. So obviously I've got massive concerns with this junction because it goes up to the Gore Pit junction on the top of Fearing Hill, London Road. So originally in the past it was talked that there was going to be a link road from this junction up to London Road through the Crown Estates land, which is there, you're right there. But now National Highways say they don't need it and they think that the Gore Pit junction is going to handle all that traffic, because I don't think it can. Essex Highways seem to be supporting National Highways in that they think it can as well, because it is taking the Tiptree traffic off, which is one of the benefits of this scheme. It's taking Tiptree traffic away from Fearing Hill and Kelvedon High Street. But what you're going to do, you're going to get all of, unless some of the Kelvedon traffic decides to go to Whitton, you're going to get Kelvedon and Fearing and the Coggeshall hinterland all coming this way. And it is going to cause, this road is really busy at peak times as it is. And I don't think, one, the Gore Pit junction will be able to take the traffic, and also the Coggeshall Road junction past the school. That is difficult to get out of now because it's at a funny angle. It's going to be, so you're coming, so people from Coggeshall are going to come down Coggeshall Road, have to turn right and then turn left and then do the repeat on the way back. So when you're giving right, it's very difficult. There are massive problems, I think, with it, although it does take Tiptree traffic off. And I know Essex Highways are aware and they are talking to National Highways, but they seem, National Highways just seem to think, no, you've got to get on with it with that junction as it is. Then onto the detrunking of the bit from Fearing to Marks Tay. Again, National Highways just seem to want to hand it over to the talks I've been involved with. They just want to hand it over to Essex, and then they've got to deal with it. Whereas, in an ideal world, we want to turn it into a linear park, still have a couple of lanes maybe for local traffic, but one side of it could be turned into a linear park for walkers, cyclists, and horse riders, etc. But at the moment, National Highways or the government don't seem to be wanting to hand the money over for that. They just want to give away 4 lanes to Essex and then say get on with it, which isn't satisfactory. Thank you.
Yeah, I share your concerns about the detrunking, particularly as the route between Fearing and Colchester is quite lengthy and without much traffic slowing down, like features such as roundabouts or any bumps or anything like that, it could become a bit of a raceway and attract unsavoury types. It's an issue that is continuing to be discussed, and we will be working closely with ECC on that one, and Colchester Borough Council will need to get involved as well. Moving on to Gore Pit Junction, there is, as part of the Fearing Strategic Growth Allocation, the bypass, and there is funding from already Section 1/6 funding banked from the 163 dwellings for improvements to Gore Pit Junction, should it be needed. National Highways' view on this is quite disappointing in a way, in that they see that if they are not, if the project doesn't increase traffic, if there's no overall effect from background level, they won't do any mitigation, and they won't fund any mitigation, and I think that's the view that they think will be successful at the DCO in front of the inspector, and we have a similar issue with Hatfield Peveril at the Duke of Wellington roundabout, in that they take the view that if background traffic is not increased, then they won't do any mitigation. ECC have so far agreed with that point of view as well. On the route between, on this route between Kelvedon and all the way to Whittam, I guess, there are a couple of features that do slow down traffic. The 2 roundabouts there. There'll be a crossing here as well, and I think that the speed limit to be put in force there will be 50 miles an hour rather than anything like 70. That would, in a way, slow down rat running, but wouldn't prevent the volume of traffic which would like to go on a rat run. Presumably, most traffic from Kelvedon would head towards the Ilmouth Road, junction 24. I think that's what the modelling says.
Well, we won't really know. It depends how close you live to the Rat Run Road, for want of a better expression. But I think, okay, you are taking the Tiptree traffic off because it's going to get on the A12 at Inworth. but you're getting the two junctions worth of traffic, the Calvin South and the Fearing North. It's all going to be going down to Inward. So I really don't understand how National Highways can say the traffic levels aren't going to go up. It just beggars belief to me.
If I just say, the Inworth Road, that junction has been subject of huge discussion. That every single briefing I've attended, there have been real concerns about it. I mean, ultimately, it is going to come down to an inspector. The detrunking is something we can agree on, and certainly Councillor Wagland's point has been that National Highways seem very keen to offload it at the end, but are not providing any funding or anything much in the way of support, and that was her point she made very clearly. So that is obviously still a matter of some contention, still to be sorted out. Gary, anything else you want to add to Councillor Thorogood's points? No? Right. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, what I'm going to say in no way detracts from my support for the widening of the A12, long overdue, and certainly to be welcomed in getting a proper transport route to the east of London. I do want to concentrate my remarks on, and I apologise for being NIMBY here, but on the impact on my constituents in Great Notley. In the remarks on page 12 of the report, it talks about weekend and overnight closures when required, which I will imagine will be actually quite significant during the 4-year period. And the diversion, of course, will be via the A131 and the A120. Again, I declare I live in a straight line, less than 400 metres from the A131, and there are a lot of my constituents who live even closer. And clearly, that bypass, what commonly known as the Great Notley bypass, will be very heavily used, particularly at night, but also at weekends, and will lead on to the A120. And we all know the existing car park that exists on the A120 from Galleys Corner back to Panners at the best of times. That is going to increase. And I'm just a little bit concerned in terms of the rather sort of throwaway, the route's been considered and says unlikely to have any significant effect to population health. I think it will. I think it will provide significant disturbance to residents there. And I think I'm not quite sure what individual item counts as a noise receptor, but 266 is quite a significant number. And I would just personally like to see a little bit more effort put into protecting during that period that impact, because it does will certainly affect that, and I think it will just show even more how quickly we need to get the A120 done as well to release the impact that has on my constituents, and I imagine the constituents as well in Braintree South, to get that done as quickly as possible. And I think we shouldn't lose the opportunity to link those two things. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Gary, are we able to beef up that at all? That Councillor Butland says yes on page 12. It is a little bit wishy-washy, maybe.
I think we can certainly raise this concern with National Highways to get further details on the diversion and how it will operate. Perhaps they can slow down, put down the speed limits during the times of operation. Perhaps they need to minimise the number of weekend closures as much as possible. As I understand it, they will be using contraflow and using existing carriageways as much as possible. The offline construction is going to be completely isolated, so that won't result in any closures. I think the replacement of the bridges at Hatfield Peveril will each require weekend closures,
Yeah.
and we will get further details and try and minimise impact on our residents.
Thank you.
Councillor Cunningham next, and then Councillor Abbott and Councillor Everard. Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First, if I may, a little bit of housekeeping. My apologies. I got a message just as the meeting was starting that Councillor Wrench sends his apologies for this evening. I'm afraid some work commitments have delayed
Thank
him
you for
from
that.
attending the meeting. Obviously, a very good presentation. Thank you for that, and some very important points made by member colleagues so far. Again, reiterate how welcome and pleasing it is to see the A12 improvements being made. For too long, this part of the east of England has had to rely on 1960s, 1970 infrastructure when it's been one of the major arteries linking the capital to some of the largest settlements in the east of England, but also the coast, and that's been totally unacceptable. And those who have navigate and have to navigate regularly the junction at Rivenhall End, the inadequate country lanes at Hatfield Peveril will obviously welcome the improvement. And delighted that in terms of forward planning, there is the option there to link up to the A120, which, as Councillor Butland says, we still really want to see happen in the not too distant future. I appreciate there's been a lot of points regarding consultation and BDC's involvement. I do think it would be wrong for BDC to receive disproportionate criticism for their role in this process. BDC is not the Strategic Highways Authority. We are a consultee at BDC. We work with others to help the process, but I think, unless I'm very wrong, the statutory obligations upon us are relatively limited compared to the highway, to the county authority. And the county highway authority, as you rightly say, Chairman, have had an impressive, comprehensive programme of engagement and informing of communities and members, and I appreciate some colleagues are better informed than others through this process, and it is reassuring to having seen the programme of further consultation in the weeks and months ahead as we reach this critical point. But nothing else to add now, Madam Chairman, but obviously happy to move the recommendations set out in the report. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Cunningham. Does that find a seconder at this point? Yes, Councillor Butland, thank you. Councillor Abbott, I think you wanted to come back next.
Yes, thank you. If I could see clarification, Madam Chairman, from you as to how the process will go on. I think you have delegated authority from this meeting to sign it off finally. Will we see that before you sign it off? Because I think there's quite a few points been made, and I will labour the point slightly again on the D-Trunk Rivenhall End section. And by the way, I think it's interesting that from what I'm hearing from Councillor Thorogood and also from groups who contacted me, and when I'm not their ward member, but I tend to get a lot of stuff that's to do with the environment in that area, there seems to be quite a bit of support for maybe coming down to 2 lanes and having some sort of linear park to the east of Fearing. But I want to make it clear that's a completely different dynamic to what happens at Rivenhall End, and that's what I'm coming on to say. There's a major question here. It's not just niceties. This is about the delivery of the scheme. So we've talked about you'd need 2 lanes running, and then they work on the other 2 lanes. Well, at Rivenhall End, they're going to provide a complete bypass. But we don't know at what point National Highways are going to come in and do the substantial amount of work they need to do on the D-Trunk section. So unlike other D-Trunk sections, which might be just here you are, County Council, the Rivenhall End D-Trunk section, as you can see there, is going to have a massive amount of work done on it, which National Highways are promising, which we're really glad in the large part they're doing. So at what point does the County Council come in and do what they say they're going to do? So, oh no, we don't want that. We're going to take two of the lanes away, because I can't emphasise how much it's not going to look like that if they take the 2 lanes away. We've got a clashing of heads here, which really needs sorting out, and I think that's why I'd quite like it to come back so we know what BDC is saying in the final piece. Thank you.
Okay, I'll get Gary maybe to come in on that, but as far as is it coming back, I don't know if it necessarily comes back to this committee, does it? Yes, I think by email certainly, but we will get sight of it because there will be some amendments to make to this following these discussions this evening. So I think certainly can be emailed around. Yeah, for sure. Gary, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that the SOCG is a live document, so even during the examination it can be revised. So it may require negotiations down to the wire, and it may be that the various parties and stakeholders involved don't agree on a final form for the detrunking exercise, and we each put what we individual organisations think is the best solution forward. But we are pledged to work with ECC on this and have agreed with their proposals so far. So it's looking positive that a agreement can be sought. It won't necessarily be by the time the examination starts, which or perhaps when the local impact reports are due. It could be after that, and we will generally be negotiating throughout the examination.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Everard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There's going to be a lot of confusion with all the work that's going on, diversions and goodness knows what. Well, first of all, it's so essential that we do get the A120 going. But road surfacing that's been carried out by the Essex County Council, the signage has been very, very bad, and signage not taken away, people confused, and roads supposed to be blocked but they're not. I just think that that detail should be really accentuated, that we need proper road signage and everything on all this work that's going on. Thank you.
Yes, I agree with that. I have to say, my experience is that generally in this country we are not great at diversions and signage. A number of times you get diverted off somewhere, and I think I can't remember, it's Councillor Abbott or Councillor Thorogood earlier said you just find yourself in the middle of nowhere and no sign to tell you. It's a national thing. We're not great at it, so we should perhaps aim to be a bit better when it comes, because this is a massive project. It's very welcome in many respects, but we do need to try and make life as easy as possible for the residents who are going to be affected. Councillor Thorogood, you wanted to come back, and then I think we'll probably wrap this one up.
Sorry, it was just
all right.
Sorry, it was just a comment I wanted to make. Gary mentioned about the population growth of Chelmsford and Colchester being high growth. At this month's Climate Action Panel meeting, Graham Thomas, the Chief Planner at Essex County Council, said Essex is looking at 200,000 new homes by 2050. I think it was 2050, could have been even 2040, but anyway, it's in this half of the century. So 200,000 homes, and they'll be centred on Chelmsford, Colchester and Basildon. So just to give you some sort of scale, Southampton is 108,000 houses. So you're getting two Southamptons coming to Essex. So I think a lot of residents think that the widening of the A12 is to help existing traffic levels, but it isn't, is it? It's going to be a big Southampton dropped on Colchester and Chelmsford. So I think Essex and perhaps Braintree should tell residents that. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Anybody else? I'm not seeing any hands. I think we've had a good discussion about that. Clearly, that we know there are some concerns about some of these proposals, but we will feed back as robustly as we are able to. So it has been moved and seconded that the recommendations on page 5, all three of them, are approved. And could I have a show of hands on that, please? Those in agreement. Thank you, members. That is unanimous. Thank you. Right. We will move on to item 6 on the agenda, Local Development Scheme revision, which Alan is going to present. This sets out the planning documents and policies which the council will be producing and their timetable. Necessary just to look at it again, mainly because the local plan section 2 has been adopted. So, Alan, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spray. So the local, as Councillor Spray just said, the local development scheme is the council's programme for producing development plan documents such as the local plan, supplementary planning documents, as well as other evidence base. We also include information on the progress of neighbourhood planning in the district. This version of the LDS updates the version which was produced in May 2021. So the main changes to this LDS are to reflect the adoption of the local plan. Members may have noticed it's got significantly shorter since we've had to remove all those parts from it. And also we've updated the SPD section. So that now includes SPDs we are expecting to be producing in the next couple of years. So page 9 of the LDS, or 87 in the committee report, has that table that says title and subject of proposed SPDs and DPDs. So this includes SPDs on climate change, affordable housing, design, and a DPD on renewable energy locations. The contents of the renewable energy DPD is subject to obviously a government review, so everything we have in the LDS will obviously need to be reviewed as the government's plans for planning emerge over the next sort of 6 to 12 months. This table does also provide a brief summary of the purpose of each of those documents. So we have commenced work on some of these documents. So an officer group has started work on the design, affordable housing, SPDs, and the waste SPD. Parking SPD is being produced alongside the Essex Planning Officers Associations, and meetings have been taking place on that. These documents are largely being produced in-house as well. However, some of the other documents, such as the open spaces supplementary planning document, will require some outside consultancy commissioning, as these are generally more specialist areas. It's also the case that we're having the development management officers will be involved in all of these projects, so we will have some valuable input from them as well, because at the end of the day they're the ones who are going to be sort of implementing these SPDs through the planning process. So what will happen with the SPDs is they'll be taken to this committee for approval for consultation once they've been drafted. We are intending to do some sort of pre-consultation as well, where we can hopefully get member input on these documents, as well as consulting with people like developers, house builders, that sort of thing, depending on the subject of the document. Our statement of community involvement says we will consult on the documents for 6 weeks, which we will do, and we'll probably start seeing drafts of these documents appearing at this committee during 2023, with adoptions in 23 and 24. The LDS also has a anticipated date from when we're likely to complete a review of the local plan. Currently, under guidance, we have to complete a review of the local plan every 5 years. So we've got a date of July 2027 penciled in for when we will hopefully get a review done. And finally, the resource and risk section has been updated to include references to potential changes in national guidance and government policies in future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Well, I'm sure we're all really looking forward to the review of the local.
Thought I'd slip that in there.
Right, yes, Councillor Abbott.
2 points and questions, Madam Chairman, related. Pleased to hear, well, first of all, very clear presentation, and the consultation, the process sounds very good. For the SPDs and DPDs.
Yeah.
You can't say that after 2 beers. Question is, and it's not pressing officers at all, it's a genuine question, why are they expected to be completed in 23 and 24? I mean, why can't some of them be sooner than that? Thinking about the fact we have a window, don't we, between now and the review of the local plan. So that's my first question. There may be an obvious answer, which I'm missing. Second thing is, which leads me on to it, local plan review starts 24, but by my maths could be a 3 or 3.5 year process. Why is it that long And are we obliged to start that early, having only adopted in 22?
Yes, Alan.
So the 23-24 adoption dates, they are estimates. Obviously, we're nearly into 2023 now. Some of the documents are relatively more advanced than others. So the waste SPD, I think, will most likely be adopted relatively soon in 2023. Other documents are very large in their scope. So the open spaces SPD actually consists of a suite of documents which also includes things like playing pitch strategy, stuff like that. So I think the Sport England guidance has a sort of sets out a timetable, and that is pretty much an entire year just to get an open spaces SPD produced. So these dates, they are estimates. They could come forward a lot quicker. We could have made it even quicker with the SPDs, but because technically, according to the regulations, you only need to consult on them for 28 days. But our SCI says 6 weeks. The SPDs also only require a much more minimal consultation. The renewable energies one is a DPD. That's a slight subtlety. That's a development plan document, so it's effectively is the same as a local plan, and that's a change the planning inspectors made at the examination to say that our renewable energy document would have to be a DPD, not an SPD. So that's going to require a bit more. Yeah, hence the later date. So that's broadly the reason. Local plans. It does take quite a while to produce a local plan. We submitted the last one, I remember, in 2017, but we'd actually started work on it back in 2014 when we did a call for sites. So that was 3 years between starting work and submission of that document. So I think we would need a fair amount of breathing room to actually be able to produce that document. Obviously, we hope that the examination process doesn't take a long time, but it's the amount of time you do need to sort of produce these documents. You'd need things like updated SHMAs, which take quite a long time to do. Obviously, we don't know what government's going to do in terms of housing numbers. There's obviously talk of whether or not it will be back to locally determined figures, in which case you locally determine a figure through a SHMA, which takes quite a long time to do. So these things have quite a lot of lead-in time. So, but we'll try and get them done as quickly as we can.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Any comments? No? Right. Members, the Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Everard. I do apologise.
Despite Councillor Bauer's endeavours and everything, I don't think that we're able to provide enough affordable and social housing. And you did mention it in there, but I couldn't see much on that. Thank you.
Well, yeah.
Is there any way we can? Is there any way that we can improve?
Well, we are exceeding our targets on that. Councillor Bowers, would you like to come in first, and then I'll ask Alan to say something.
Yeah, well, just thank you, Councillor Everard, but I appreciate your comments. But if you compare the delivery of affordable housing in this authority to comparable authorities in Essex, we are very high and exceeding, I think, virtually everyone. And 417 affordable homes delivered the last year is a fantastic achievement against a target of 250. So I think we should be proud as an authority. We always want to deliver more, but I think we should be proud as an authority in the numbers we are delivering. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Bowers. Any comment, Alan?
Just to add, I mean, obviously we have a policy on affordable housing. The affordable housing SPD will build on that policy and will update a very old document we have. And just to say that, I mean, yes, we have the policy on affordable housing, but we do still have to take into consideration things like viability on difficult sites. But we do ask for it, and I think we're a relatively successful authority. And the more houses we're building, obviously, the more affordable housing we can get.
Yep, thank you. I agree with that. Right. I don't see anybody else wanting to comment. So, members, we have the recommendation on page 75. It is recommended that the revised Local Development Scheme 2022 is approved by the Local Plan Subcommittee. I don't think anybody's moved that so far. Councillor Scattergood, thank you. I have a seconder, Councillor Everard, and several other places. Right, can I have a show of hands, please? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you, members. Right. We have nothing under urgent business. Yes. Yes, Councillor Abbott.
Relates to the email this afternoon. I just wanted to alert members, and perhaps you could explain what we're going to do. The Anglia pylons has come in. Their scoping opinions come in, and you remember we did discuss this previously, and you kindly this afternoon emailed me to say the process is very tight.
Yeah.
So we're not going to be able to look at that scoping before this committee. There isn't enough time. But obviously it's of huge importance to the south of the district. This is the 50-metre pylons marching across the countryside, across the south of the district. I'm just wondering if it would be possible for you to accept my suggestion that at least the members along the route could have, even if it's a very brief input into the scoping process. I'm already getting landowners and residents contacting me saying, how do we get involved? Because it's a statutory consultancy level. So I think Braintree is the conduit by which there might be that local input. So I'd be grateful for your consideration.
Yes, I appreciate the concerns on this. It is, and I said this at a previous meeting, it's unusual that the number of MPs along the route are in agreement about this and the concerns. It is coming to me under delegated authority to sign off the response. The timescale is very tight, which is not, it's not our doing, it's the way the system works, unfortunately. And I have got little more than a 24-hour turnaround the end of next week to read the draft response and go back with comments. So there isn't time for any further consultation, certainly not to come to a committee. There has been quite a lot of briefings and consultations on this. I've been on a number of online meetings which have been reasonably well attended, and certainly at least one or two where I sent out emails encouraging the local members who were most affected along that route to attend those briefings. I have emailed, following your second email, Emma Goodings this afternoon, just to ask for her view. But I'm not sure, to be honest, that there is going to be time or the facility for local members to have any further input at this stage. That there has been quite a lot of opportunity, and I'm not, in saying that, downplaying the importance of this scheme. I mean, you've only got to drive around the district. There are signs up absolutely everywhere saying no to the pylons and so on, and we all have concerns about it. I will just wait and see what Emma Goodings has to say. But Alan, I don't know whether you have any thoughts on that, but I personally don't think there is the capacity at the moment to do any more.
Yeah, you're quite right. It's a very tight deadline. I think we've got to get it in by the 5th of December. We have commissioned all of our specialists, so we are receiving responses from our specialist consultees at this time. So everyone's been commissioned, and we are getting those emails back at the moment, and it's just a case of trying to summarise those and get them into an appropriate form for Councillor Spray to look at. I appreciate it's a very tight time, and this is only sort of an initial screening, so there will be further opportunity to comment on the actual environmental statement when it is actually finalised. So this is essentially our people, National Grid saying this is what we are going to, this is how we are going to do the environmental screening. What do you think of it? And so it's sort of the initial stage. So we will have a much larger document later to actually consult on, and would have significant more time then to do it. The actual current screening is just over 400 pages
Yes.
of document, and we're trying to currently go through and summarise at the moment. So it's
Yeah. Hence the push on time and the reasons I blocked out a whole day to look at the draft response and get any comments back as I have. So I will come back to you on that, Councillor Abbott, finally. But I personally don't think that we have the time or capacity to do a further. I mean, it would have to be by email anyway, and then those comments would then have to be perhaps included in the draft response. But as Alan said, this is by far not the be all and end all. There will be other opportunities, but I'll give you a final answer on that. I'm just waiting for a comment from Emma. All right. I say we have nothing under item 7, urgent business, either in public or private session. So at about 7:19, members, I will draw this meeting to a close, and thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you to those who may have been watching on the YouTube channel. Thank you.